Have you ever watched a romantic movie and thought, wow, the writers and the director sure missed a golden opportunity to bring this story to the next level? That's how I felt at the end of Bridget Jones' Mad About a Boy. There's one scene in particular that really didn't sit right with me, and it took me a minute to get past it. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, let's dive into a movie that isn't afraid to face the messy realities of motherhood, of grief, and what it really means to start over. So if you're ready for a step-by-step breakdown with heart, then you know what to do. And that is, don't go anywhere.
When it comes to romantic movies, there's so much out there to choose. But if you follow your heart, the truth is, you can't really lose.
So we start this movie with a rather chaotic scene. Bridget is trying to zip up her dress and she can't do it. And her kids are running amok. They're making noise. They're getting on her nerves. And she even manages to burn spaghetti. Now that takes some doing, but Bridget manages to do so. Now our lovable Bridget Jones is played by, of course, the ever-charming Renee Zellweger. We are now in a rather dark club where everyone is seated and a lady is on the stage reciting a poem. Now, amongst the audience is Daniel Cleaver, an ex of Bridget Jones, and of course it's no other than Hugh Grant. While he's there listening, his phone rings and it's Bridget and she's asking him if he remembers about tonight. And he says, of course he does. But you can tell by his tone that he had completely forgot whatever it is that she wanted him to do. He says something totally inappropriate, which gets everybody looking at him. And he just says, it's my mum, which makes everybody look at him even more. He gets up. He kisses the lady on the stage. That makes us believe that they are probably in a relationship. And then he leaves. Daniel goes over to Bridget's house. The kids apparently seem to love him. And he says other inappropriate things to the children, but they don't mind. Bridget is still struggling with the zipper, and I confirm it is almost impossible to do those wretched things up when you're on your own. But the kids help her. Daniel tells her, go and enjoy your evening. And so Bridget leaves. While Bridget walks to her destination, she narrates that life is full of white notes and life is full of black notes. And as she's walking, she meets up with Darcy, her husband. And when she knocks on the door and the person opens up and lets her in, we see that Darcy is no longer there. And the reason why Mr. Darcy, who is played by Colin Firth, the reason why he is no longer there is because he passed away 4 years ago in Sudan during an humanitarian mission. Now that evening, she is there to celebrate the life of her husband, Mark Darcy. And the atmosphere, it's a little bit strained because everyone is looking at her with those sad eyes. And they're all saying, so how you feeling? Which would really annoy me. And of course, I think it annoys Bridget too. They try to convince her that it's time to move on, that she needs to start dating again. I mean, after all, it's been 4 years. But she's not really having it, and you can tell that she's not there yet. In fact, bit put out, a little bit annoyed, and she gets up to go to the bathroom, I think just to clear her head and to get away from these annoying people, even though they are her friends and they have been there for her. Later on that evening, she's out for drinks with an even smaller group of friends, and they tell her that she really does need to be with someone again, because if not, it will seal up. Is that a thing? I don't know. But that's what they tell her, that if she doesn't, the chances are it will seal up. She says that no one would ever fancy her again. She says that she doesn't want anybody else. And even if she did, they wouldn't want her anyway, because she is so unfanciable. When she gets home, the house is a complete mess. And Daniel tells her that her daughter takes after her, lawless and completely taken by him, and that her son is very much like her late husband, Mr. Darcy. That evening, when she puts the children to bed, Mabel, her daughter, notices that there's a white owl outside. Could it be Mr. Darcy looking over them? And while she's putting the children to bed, Mark Darcy sings to the children, and he sings, "I'd do anything for you," from Oliver, if I'm not mistaken. And this shows clearly that Bridget is still grieving, because she's still imagining in Mark, her husband, with them. And this is a really poignant moment to see him singing to his children. Bridget tries to watch Netflix, but for the life of her, she cannot remember the password. So she sits there frustrated and swearing under her breath. And here we can tell that Bridget is rather lonely. She narrates that everyone else is out and about or having a good time, or they're with someone, while she's there on her own. And here we see all the spirits of her friends telling Bridget how she's supposed to grieve. And the funny thing about this scene is that there are conflicting, contrasting advice on how to grieve. One says, oh, you have to wallow. Another says, absolutely you do not have to wallow. One says, you have to put the kids first. Another says, forget the kids, think about yourself. One spirit of her friend says, you know what? You're supposed to have lots and lots of sex. And another one says, forget about sex. Then her friend Richard tells her that she needs to come back to work. Here we have a lovely scene with Bridget in the hospital with her late father while he's on his deathbed. And he asks Bridget to promise him that the one thing that she will do is live. She looks reflective as she remembers this moment, and she finds an old diary and she starts to write in it. Could this be the turning point for our Bridget Jones? And she actually writes in the diary, Bridget Jones, it's time to live. And here we have a rather lovely scene on the notes of David Bowie's Modern Love, where Bridget and her children just have a good time doing normal life things. They're dancing, they're brushing their teeth, they're cooking, they're doing homework, they're being crazy. And it really is a sweet little scene as we see Bridget navigating life as a single parent. Bridget takes her children to school, and she takes them to school in her pajamas. She encourages herself to do things right this time and to not be afraid of the other mothers. Now here we meet for the first time Mr. Walliker, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, and I really hope that I didn't butcher the man's name. It's hoping. Well, anyway, Mr. Walliker, he seems a little bit uptight. He has this whistle and he's blowing it at all the kids, telling them to get in line, to get into class, to get a move on. He seems very rigid and uptight. And he doesn't really seem to care who the parents are or who the children are. If he sees something wrong, he's saying it. And one of the popular mums, he blows that whistle after her kids, and she's rather upset. And she wants her child to be in the school musical. And he says, quite frankly, that the child's not good enough. And the mother is horrified. But you can tell that the other mothers are kind of impressed that there's someone finally to put her in her place. At the school gates, one of the girls asks Mabel, Bridget's daughter, "Why is your grandma in pajamas?" Can you imagine? Bridget takes Mabel to see the doctor, and the doctor is played by the ever fabulous an actress that I like very much, and that is Emma Thompson. Now the doctor tells her that she's quite happy to help out, even though she is a gynecologist. And one of the things that she tells Bridget to do is that she needs to get out of her pajamas, which I think is a good idea too, that she needs to read a book or clean the kitchen or to do something. Bridget thinks, for some reason, that the doctor's going to tell her that she needs to get back on that horse again, if you know what I mean. But the doctor says, no, leave the pink bits alone. When she's ready, and she'll get there in her own time. What she would advise her to do, though, is to go back to work. Next we see Bridget on the phone, and she's asking to talk to Richard, but he's not there at the moment. And we can only assume that she listened to her doctor and that she wants to ask Richard for her job back. When she gets home, Bridget is totally overwhelmed. The kids are acting crazy, they're being rude, they are really out of hand, they're really out of control. They won't give her a moment's peace. She locks herself away for a moment, and she says that she doesn't want to be a mother anymore because she's just feeling so overwhelmed. And I think that for a lot of us mothers, at some time or other, we have come to that point too, where just for a brief minute, you just want to have a second to yourself. Of course you love your kids and you always want to have your kids with you, but just for a minute, you would just like to have that time for yourself. And I completely understood, and I could feel her anguish in this scene. Bridget's friend, Miranda, signs her up for Tinder. And Bridget's not really for it. And her friend takes one of the most unflattering pictures I've ever seen and puts it up as a profile picture. Now, Bridget, on the way to the park, she doesn't want to be on this Tinder thing. She's not into it. And she wants to delete it. But then she realizes that she's getting matches, and so she's thinking, maybe she should keep it after all. At the park, Mabel climbs a tree and gets stuck. Billy is up in the tree and he's stuck too. So Bridget climbs the tree to go and try to help her children. But in that moment, wouldn't you know it, Mr. Walliker comes by and he asks her if she needs any help. And she says, no, they're fine. They're just playing. There's no big deal. Now he knows full well that she's lying. but he kind of leaves her to it. And Mabel lets me laugh because in this moment she says, "We're not going to make it." And that was funny. Now along comes a handsome park ranger, and he comes and helps them down the tree. And Mr. Walliker, he leaves them all to it. Now sparks kind of fly between Bridget and this handsome park ranger. And his name is Rockster, played by Leo Waddle. Back at school, Mr. Walliker and Bridget, they meet again, and Mr. Walliker tells her that he's glad to see that she made it safe and sound from off the tree. And she makes out that, look, they weren't in trouble. There was no big deal, no problem whatsoever. The mothers at the school are really surprised to see Bridget out of her pajamas. She tells them that she's thinking about going back to work, and one of the mothers insists on finding Bridget a nanny, and she knows of one. Now, I really like this scene where Bridget enters a lift, an elevator, and she's looking around for the button to push to go to the floor that she wants to go to. But there's nothing. There are no buttons. Everything is just smooth. There's absolutely zero. So she doesn't know what to do until someone comes into the lift and says what floor they want to go to. And it's then that Bridget realizes that you have to speak to the lift. And that's why there are no buttons. Richard, of course, offers Bridget her job back. And here we see Bridget reclaiming her identity, an identity that goes beyond motherhood and beyond widowhood. And this I would consider to be growth. Rockster, the handsome park ranger, he reaches out to Bridget. And also the nanny turns up, Cleo, which is a very pretty young lady, and she is played by Nico Parker. This nanny seems to be perfect. She's on point, she knows everything, she doesn't miss a beat, just absolutely amazing. But Bridget feels a little bit guilty leaving her kids in the hands of a nanny. Over a period of time, Bridget starts texting with Rockster. And her friends, after a while, convince her to meet up with him. You know, enough with the texting, meet up with the man. And Bridget considers it and she thinks, okay, but nothing's going to happen between them. But when she's at the shop, she ends up buying quite a few condoms. And would you believe who's behind her as she's buying these items? Mr. Walliker. And as she passes him, he says to her, "Enjoy your weekend." And I'm sure she will. When Bridget sees Rockster waiting for her, she thinks he looks perfect. And when he tells her that he's 29, she thinks he's more her son's Billy's age than her age. And Billy's, 9, 11? I don't know, around that age. The date goes really, really well. And when she reaches home, he asks if he can kiss her. And she's a bit taken aback because she's not used to being asked if she can be kissed. She says yes, and they kiss. Well, they end up doing a lot more than that. Before they start their night, Bridget goes into the bathroom, taking a bit of time for herself because she's not really sure if she can do it because it's a big step. It's been a while, right? When she comes out, well, she discovers that she can do it, and they do. When she goes to work, now Bridget works in a TV studio, and when she went, everyone, it seemed to see this glow on her, and everybody's asking her, did you have sex last night? You had sex last night, didn't you? And when she could take it no more, she finally says, yes, she did. It was mind-blowing. It was amazing. And it's only then that she realizes that there is a studio audience behind her, and they all clap and cheer, happy for her. Can you imagine how embarrassing that must have been? Bridget and Rockstar's relationship seems to be going pretty well, and they see each other for the entire summer. Back at school, Mr. Walliker asks Bridget, how did the family Darcy spend their summer holiday? And Mabel says, I have a new daddy that gives mummy a funny hairstyle in the mornings. Billy, on the other hand, he makes it clear that no, he's not our daddy, he's just someone, which obviously shows us that Billy is still grieving. Now Bridget is invited to Billy's school on one of those, where the parents come in and they talk about what they do and their careers and things like that. And Bridget improvises an interview with Mr. Walliker, and she's able to turn a simple insect life circle into something deeper about existence and souls. She tries to get Mr. Walliker to say that even after death, the soul of the insect stays around and stays with the family. She wants Mr. Walliker to say this, of course, to help her son, to make her son feel that even though his father is no longer with them, his soul is still there. His soul is still around. His soul will still be with them forever. But Mr. Walliker, he's a realist, and there's no way is he going to say that. Bridget goes to a summer party, and everyone is asking her, where's your new beau? Is he coming? Some even doubt that she's actually seen someone. Now the birthday girl, the birthday woman, she has a little dog, and the dog falls into the pool, and everyone's just standing around and nobody really knows what to do. And all of a sudden, Rockstar, Bridget's beau, he arrives. He jumps into the pool, saves the little doggy, and everyone is looking at this man like he is the sexiest thing on the planet, especially as he comes out of the pool all wet. And I might not necessarily be a fan of Rockstar, but him coming out of the pool all wet, yeah, it was giving a little something, something. He goes up to Bridget and he just kisses her, and everybody is watching. Everybody is just totally taken aback and amazed and in wonder and happy for her too. And yes, it's a good kiss, and some are even jealous as Rockstar keeps on kissing our Bridget Jones. Later on, at the end of the party, Rockstar is had a few too many, and he says that he wishes that he had a time machine, which obviously shows that the age difference between them is obviously a problem for him. Over the next few days, Bridget tries calling and texting Rockstar, but nothing. He doesn't reply. He is completely ghosting her. How terrible is that, right? Unfortunately, it's something that happens in today's dating world. It's not a nice thing at all. It's hurtful and it's disappointing. Bridget, out with her friends, they convince her to take this lip serum. I don't know why, I don't know what it was supposed to do, but she takes it and her lips blow up and she looks really weird, right, with these lips. When she goes to school, Mr. Walliker, who seems to have completely changed, because before where he was all uptight and, rigid, now he seems softer, gentler, he seems more relaxed, and he's even helping Mabel with her shoes, whereas before it seemed as if he didn't even like children that much. Well, anyway, Mr. Walliker, he tells Bridget that she shouldn't take that stuff again because she looked fine just the way she was. Bridget goes to her doctor, the gynecologist, and the gynecologist, she finds the whole situation with her lips hilarious. But she does tell her that those aren't the lips that she's used to dealing with. Bridget has a complete breakdown in the office and she tells the doctor that it's her fault. It's her fault for telling her to get out of her pajamas in the first place. And since she followed her advice, her life has fallen apart. The doctor makes it plain and the doctor says to her, look, a toy boy and big lips is not the solution. What she needs to do is to embrace the chaos. Bridget gets a call that her friend Daniel, he's in the hospital. And when she gets there, he tells her that he had a heart murmur and that she was the only person that he could think of to call, to put down as the next of kin. And he was wondering and asking himself, how did he get to the point where he was kinless? But Daniel, you see, has a son who he is estranged from, a 16-year-old. And Bridget encourages him to reach out to his boy. And she tells him that her children, they would do anything to be with their father. While she's working at the TV studio, guess who rocks up? Rockstar. And he arrives with a pie and he tells Bridget that he's sorry, that he panicked and that he wasn't ready, but he's ready now and that he loves her. Bridget refuses and says that she wishes that she had a time machine too. But of course that's not the case and she wishes him all the best. But no, it's not going to happen. He leaves, taking with him the pie. And that's a negative in my book. It's Parents' Day at the school and Mr. Walliker, he tells Bridget that her son Billy is doing really well. But he fears that he is withdrawn. Bridget is obviously worried, but they cannot go into it anymore because they are interrupted by other parents. And you can tell that Mr. Walliker, he wants to go into it more with Bridget, but she gets up and she leaves. Outside, there is the white owl again. Bridget sits and she watches hours and hours and hours of clippings talking about the moment Mark, her husband, he passed away. And she sits there with his glasses, with his watch, smelling them, trying to get the feel of him. She presses the watch against her skin and she writes a letter to Mark telling him that she's sorry that she's such a bad mother, that she's sorry that Billy is withdrawn, that she's sorry for the toy boy, and she asks him to help her. On Mark's birthday, the whole family write letters, and they go to the park with balloons and the letters, and they release the balloons out into the atmosphere. And maybe this is a good sign, and it's telling us that Bridget is finally letting go. Bridget accompanies Mr. Walliker on a school journey, and she seems to be a lot of fun. She's sitting on the bus and she's singing with the children, and Mr. Walliker, he looks around and sees her, and you can tell that he likes what he sees. It begins to rain, and they seek refuge in this building, and Mr. Walliker, he takes off his shirt, and you can see that Mr. Walliker is rather ripped. I see you, Mr. Walliker, with your abs and stuff. I ain't mad at you. Mr. Walliker and Bridget, they bond by the fireside. As Bridget goes off to comfort one of the children, Billy sits down beside Mr. Walliker, and he confides in him that he's afraid that he will forget about his father. And Mr. Walliker tells him that his father is everywhere, and he's inside him, Billy, and also he's inside his sister, Mabel. Mabel and Bridget are on the way to the school's talent show, and Mr. Walliker arrives and sees them and tells them to hurry up, and he picks up Mabel and he runs with her. At the show, Billy sings "I'd Do Anything," the song that he sings with his father. And of course, Bridget is moved to tears and she's happy. And at the end of it, she looks over to the side and she can see Mr. Darcy standing up there, applauding his son. Bridget tells Billy that his father would have been so proud of him. Bridget tells Mr. Walliker just how great the show was. And Mr. Walliker says, "Yes, I know, it was magic." And she says, "No, it wasn't magic." And here comes the best line in the movie. Okay. I have to get into the role to say this, right? And Bridget says, "No, Mr. Walliker, it wasn't magic. Tonight, I saw my son up there, and for the first time in 4 years, I knew that he was going to be okay, that we were going to be okay. That was you, Mr. Walliker. It wasn't magic." She then goes on to tell him that they are going out for drinks, and she hopes that he will join them. It's snowing heavily outside, and Mr. Walliker, he does actually show up to where Bridget is having drinks, but he can see her through the window and that she's having a good time, and he doesn't really want to impose, he doesn't want to disturb her, so he leaves. But Bridget sees him, and she runs outside and runs after him, and she calls out his name. He tells her that, he is so much better talking to children. He tells her that she is a force equal and opposite and irresistible. He says that it's not really order that science people fall in love with, but it's the beauty in things, the beauty in her. Bridget seems to be quite shocked about the things that he's saying. She wasn't really expecting it. And him thinking that he had made a fool out of himself, that he had gotten the wrong end of the stick, he starts rambling on, thinking, oh my God, because he's embarrassed and Bridget kisses him to quieten him and to make him realize and to make him see that she feels the same way too. And here, I have to pause. And this is the scene that I have a problem with, which I think is a huge flaw. And that is that Mr. Walliker, he has on a coat, a nice long thick coat, and a scarf. And Bridget is in a shirt and skirt. That's it. And it's snowing outside. Remember that, right? Romantic movies is all about romance. It's something that makes us dream. He should have taken off his coat and wrapped around her shoulders, keeping her warm. Not talking about opposites and Newton, and keep the woman who you say you like, keep her warm, keep her protected. Or he could have taken off his scarf and wrapped it around her neck. Symbolic, because the scarf wouldn't have done anything in particular, but it would have shown that he was thinking about her, that she is a priority. Or at the very, very least, say, you must be freezing. Let's go inside and get you warm. Those are the things that us romantic movie lovers, that's what we want to see. That's the dream, right? That's how we want our leading man to be. Protective over the woman he loves. That's all I'm saying, and it took me a minute to get over that. I find it hard to believe that all the producers and the directors and the writers couldn't see that a man who really cares about his woman would not be standing out in the cold without making sure that she was warm too. It would have taken this scene to another level, if you ask me. That's all I'm saying. That's my 2 cents. Anyway, as they kiss, he tells her to call him Scott. 1 year later, it's a New Year's Eve party. Daniel is there with his son Enzo, who seems to be a bit of a ladies' man, just like his father. Everyone seems to be having a really good time. They're laughing and dancing the night away. And at the end of the evening, Bridget and her children look through the window and they see the white owl again. Bridget tries to unzip herself, but Mr. Walliker comes and helps her. A new year, a new beginning. Now the pros for this movie has to be Renee Zellweger. I mean, she does awkward and clumsy and embarrassing really well, and she's really charming, and she has brought these movies to life. Another pro is the supporting cast. I mean, you have Hugh Grant and you have Emma Thompson. They are wonderful supporting cast, and you really can't ask for anything better than them. I think a pro for this movie is that even though it is a comedy, they still face adult topics, things like motherhood, single motherhood, grief, a loss. The fact that they were able to broach such important topics and do it really well. The cons for this movie, one of the cons, is the supporting cast. I would have liked to have seen just a little bit more of them, especially Emma Thompson. But that could be just because I really like her a lot. A little bit more screen time from her, I would have appreciated it loads. Another con for me is the romantic arc between Bridget and the men. With Rockstar, okay, they texted and then they got together. But nothing really happened. You didn't see them really building and getting to know each other. And more so with Mr. Walliker. Now, Mr. Walliker, you saw his growth from the rigid professor with the whistle to the man who was helping Mabel with her shoes, who picked her up and ran with her, the way he was on the school journey, singing along on the bus. I mean, you saw all of these things. You saw his growth. But there wasn't a growth between him and Bridget. They didn't talk about anything personal. They didn't say anything that would help them get to know each other. It was all about school or the children. So yes, I would have liked to have seen a bit more growth in their relationship, a little bit more communication, a little bit more of a build-up between the two of them. What do you think? I would be really curious to hear your point of view. Do you agree with me? Or do you think there was a growth between Mr. Walliker and Bridget? One thing that we can take away from this movie is that grief is a personal journey, and there's not one path that leads to healing. There are several paths that can lead to healing. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. It doesn't matter about anybody else's opinion. You get there when you get there. Doesn't matter if it takes 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10. It's your own personal journey. And we also learn that healing doesn't mean forgetting, but it means living with the pain, yet at the same time embracing joy and love. So, is this movie worth picking up the remote for and turning on the TV? I would say yes, absolutely. It's a good film, it's fun, it's enjoyable, full of awkward moments, it's tender, it's poignant, and it's a good watch. And finally, we're finally here. There's an Italian phrase that sums up this movie beautifully. And that phrase is: L'amore è un viaggio, non una destinazione. Love is a journey, not a destination. Love is an ongoing process full of ups and downs, much like Bridget's journey in this movie. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, what are you waiting for? It's free. Thank you so much for spending your time here with me today. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. But until then, be kind to yourself, okay? Until the next time. Ciao.